well, when I guessed that we were going to find out what happened to Pink Diamond soon, I was right. Holy crap! This pair of episodes was so good. In this pair of episodes, the first half of which was about the rubies returning, being immediately captured off-screen by Lapis, being tricked into thinking a shapeshifted Amethyst was Jasper, going with the crystal gems to the moon to deliver a report to Yellow Diamond, discovering that they can't because the communicator's gone, and then being tricked by Jasper into going back to Homeworld and delivering her report for her, which leads to them discovering the deception, which leads to them being blown out into space, along with Steven. In this pair of episodes, which reads like a comedy of errors with a sudden dramatic twist, we also find out from a literal eyewitness that during the war, Rose assassinated a major political figure. There is no two ways about it now. The reason that Pink Diamond is no longer part of the Diamond Authority is because Rose killed her. Now, is there a remote possibility that this was somehow faked and Pink Diamond is alive? Yeah, it's still possible. It's still this show. But they reinforce this point so heavily in this pair of episodes that I don't really think that's the direction the show is going. I think that Rose did kill Pink Diamond. And what's worse is after he's blown out into space and puts his bubble around himself to survive, Steven ends up stuck with the only member of the Ruby Squad who was actually active during the war and who also just happened to be the eyewitness to Pink Diamond's assassination. And this Ruby, she is very loyal to Homeworld. It's pretty clear that she was originally a Pink Diamond gem too, most likely, which lends to the theory that all rubies were once Pink Diamond gems. But she is very loyal to Homeworld. She is hardcore loyal to Homeworld the same way that Jasper is, for the same reason, because of what Rose did to Pink Diamond. And then Steven is stupid enough to tell this Ruby, to tell Eyeball, that's her canon name now, that he not only has Rose Quartz's gem, but has her powers, making Ruby think that he is Rose. And she tries to kill him with her cute little sword weapon thing that she summons. And yeah, he gets away, but seriously, kid, you just twice in recent episodes compromised your position by telling the enemy that there are no more members of your team in the area. And now you almost get yourself killed by giving away too much information? That's just dumb, Steven. That's dumb. I mean, in a way, it's funny because it's a very Steven-y thing to do, but don't you think somebody would have talked to him about it at this point? Explain to him why it's dumb to give away too much information? Which is actually the most interesting part of this episode to me. It was a very serious episode. It had a very serious weight to it, especially once the revelation of what had happened to Pink Diamond was revealed. But it still had a lot of good comedy all throughout. Even while Steven is in the bubble, floating in the unforgiving vacuum of space, with an enemy that we as the audience can guess wants him dead, there are still some comedic moments. And a fourth wall joke. Bravo, Steven Universe, you pulled off a very good fourth wall joke. Which, in case you missed it, Eyeball wants to remove Steven's gem, probably just thinking that it'll poof him and then Eyeball can shatter it and get Rose back for what she did, because we know from observing Jasper with the corrupted Jaspers that a tactic that Homeworld gems seem to use to poof other gems is actually ripping the gemstone off of that other gem's body. But of course, Steven has no idea what would happen to him if his gemstone were removed, so he actually looks at the camera and says, wait, what would happen if that happened? It was very funny. But of course, Steven is not killed by this ruby, and of course, Steven is rescued, but that's not the point. The story of these two episodes were little more than a framing device around the real message that this episode was trying to convey, and that's how important communication is. Steven, all of this time, had no idea what happened to Pink Diamond. No clue. And he just recently learned that his mother was against shattering other gems. I mean, I'm sure he always guessed it, but he got confirmation of it very recently. And then he finds out that Rose not only shattered a gem, but shattered her own diamond, the leader of the faction to which Rose belonged, before rebelling, obviously. And what's worse is he's the only person denying it. Steven is the only person denying it, and he also happens to be the only person in the room, except for maybe the other four rubies, who knows practically nothing about Rose Quartz. Everyone who knew her is just remaining silent because they can't deny it, because they know it's the truth. And you could tell, especially by Pearl's reaction, they were hoping to never have to tell Steven what Rose had done. But by the end of the episode, by the time they come around and save Steven, and are so relieved that they found him, it's such a moving scene. When he asks them to elaborate on what happened, they do it. They tell him what happened. They tell him why Rose did what she did. And it's the obvious reason. It's because she didn't feel like she had another choice. We also find out in these episodes that Pink Diamond was the diamond who was in charge of the Earth colony, that it was her colony. And Rose shattered her because she didn't see another way to remove that figure from power over the colony and seize it away from Homeworld. She did what she thought was necessary, and I absolutely love the way they put it, that Rose didn't like to shatter gems, that she was against it, but that she didn't always do what was right for her. Sometimes she had to do what was right for everybody else. And there are so many other things that we can pick up on because of this episode, little tidbits that give us an idea of how the war progressed and what went on during the war, that I am, of course, going to analyze and talk about at some point, but I'm not going to focus on it here because I actually want to make this review as concise as possible. Because I absolutely love that by the end of the episode, the Gems were able to talk to Steven very rationally about this, and Steven was able to listen very rationally. He was able to, if not fully understand Rose's motives, then at least begin to understand them, to at least understand her reasoning for making the choice that she did. And both of those things, the willingness of the other Gems to talk to him about this instead of just telling him not to ask questions or any of that stuff they used to do early in the show, and Steven's willingness to accept it in a mature way, shows how much these characters have grown and how much more they've come to value communicating with one another. And Steven probably would have handled himself in all these situations with Jasper and all these situations with the Rubies had he known what Rose had done earlier. They probably should have told him. When things started to get more serious with Homeworld again, they probably should have told him the extent of what Rose had done. And I think that from this point onward, they're going to be more open with Steven about things that he should know, even if they're things that might hurt him, because now they have an example to prove how important it is to be open with information. If I'm not mistaken, these 2 episodes were the final 2 episodes of Season 3, and if that is the case, if that is true, not only does it mean that we're getting a couple of Season 4 episodes immediately after this, if I'm not mistaken, there is an episode tonight and tomorrow night, but it means that Season 3 went out on probably the highest note of the entire series. Season 1's finale was Jailbreak, which was an amazing episode. It had a huge reveal in it, but overall it was mostly just set up for the coming arc with Peridot and Jasper. Season 2 ended with Loggate, which wasn't a bad episode, but it wasn't like a big deal kind of event. But this episode ended on closure, on real closure for the characters, and honestly, guys, if this were the last episode of the entire series, if the show were somehow canceled right now, I honestly wouldn't be that disappointed. I mean, yeah, clearly I'd be very, very disappointed, but I wouldn't be as disappointed as I could be because this episode was that satisfying. And once again, antagonists have been removed from the immediate future of the show. The Rubies are no longer an immediate threat, but they're not in a position where they don't have any potential to return, which I think is great. All of that said, guys, what did you think of these episodes? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.